my intention is to just be an encouragement to others who may not be sure either about starting a business, starting a childcare center, thinking maybe they don't have the skill, ability, or education to do that.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Childcare channel, a space designed to inform, inspire, and innovate in the childcare space. My name is Jay Diaz and I am your host. Our guest today is Cassie Saquing. Cassie specializes in helping business and childcare practice owners create an emotionally intelligent and focused work culture in order to keep turnover rates down. She's a soul-centered money and systems consultant, a mom of four, and a dedicated wife. In her early days, she took her expertise in education and transformed it into a 7-figure childcare business that now runs successfully with very little involvement on her part. When the pandemic hit, she decided to expand her reach, and now she teaches other women in business to scale their mindset and their income. I'm so excited to have this conversation with Cassie today and hope that you find something of value that will support you in elevating your childcare business. Cassie, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Childcare channel.
Thank you, Jane. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited. After I had the conversation with you a little while ago, I said, "What? I have to get her on the channel." My goodness. So thank you for being here. Let me ask you, I know you're huge into business systems and creating an environment where people can really just on autopilot reach their success. I want to talk about that. But first, tell us a little bit about how you even got started into this journey of, number one, having your own childcare center, and then pivoting that to coaching. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited. And, being a mom, obviously I love children. I have 4 of my own. And so I had been doing some babysitting in my home. I kind of created a home environment for that. I had a few children. And then actually our church approached me to start a daycare center for them with the idea originally that it would be not for profit. And so I did that, and then we started growing a lot more, and the church made some leadership changes. And so we wound up, I brought in a partner because we're both moms. We want to have time for our families. And I brought in a partner, and we actually purchased the daycare from the church and became for profit a couple of years later. So that's when business started exploding. But, we started with about 16 children when we first opened in 2005. And I did emphasize, all the things that I had learned up to that point with my education degree and being a mom and starting to kind of manage my own thing. And I really, I call it getting my street MBA. It really it took years and a lot of mistakes, but learning that way and really growing and developing myself right along with the business. So, now today it's, 17 years later, can't believe it. 2 of my own children went through the program. The other ones were too old already. And, we've had, hundreds of graduates, I guess over 1,000 now, because we usually have about 100 kids a year and 120. And, it's really exciting to see and refine some of those systems. So, a few years ago, we scaled the business, which means we stepped out of the operations role and we kind of took the more visionary role, me and my business partner. And so when you do that, you're able to step back and see the big picture a little bit better and grow it a little bit more. So since the pandemic, we've made a lot of adjustments, a lot of difficult decisions and changes, but things are even better now in terms of profitability, which is a little surprising. So that's kind of my story. Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing how, the stories of everyone are different and how sometimes we're just led to where we need to be. So that's really fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a few things here that I want to go deeper on. And you mentioned that you were able to step back from the business and just have it run on its own because of systems that you figure out basically you could put in place to allow for this to happen. I want you to tell me a little bit about how you went about this and what kind of results you saw because I feel, well, first of all, I'm sure you know that generally speaking, childcare center businesses, it's really low margin for the most part. So that you've been able to increase profitability, and not just that, but as an owner, be able to get back your time and let your business run without your direct day-to-day involvement, there's got to be something here that's going to benefit a lot of people. So tell us a little bit about that side.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. And I didn't know a lot of this. And so, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, like, please don't feel bad about what you don't know. And this is why I'm so excited to be here I'm going to share like literally my secret method for doing this. And it took me years to learn this. So I'm saving you a whole lot of pain right now. So, the main thing is, and it may sound a little bit, on repeat, but you have to find out what your mission is for your particular center. Even if you're a franchise or corporate center, you're serving your community where you are. And so find out, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And it's really important, not just for yourself, but for your staff that you bring on, for the clients you attract. Your mission, whether it's to create an inclusive environment for all children. Maybe it's want to have a specialty classroom where you bring in therapy, or you have the ability to have a lot of extracurricular or enrichment programs. Every center is different and has its own personality. And that's super important to know why you're doing, or what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's your basic mission statement. So think about that today. What am I doing here and why am I doing it? And I think in the childcare preschool industry, we have the greatest opportunity to create the environment that we work in. We have the most control, especially as owners and even as teachers. I mean, what other job can you be like, I'm going to decorate my room how I want to, and I'm so excited, and I'm in charge here. So this is very unique industry kind of advantage that we have as educators. So just step back and think why you're doing, and what you're doing and why you're doing it. So mission is first. Second are the values. So what values do you hold to? And they may be different, and usually they're your personal values as an owner. So for example, one of our values is honesty and integrity. And I know that sounds really obvious, but people like to kind of shift by or scoot under the radar, and kind of tell little white lies, or maybe they told the parents one thing and they tell their supervisor another. These are not acceptable to us, and so this is part of our standard of how we run our operations, so we're here to support the children and the parents and the staff, but also, our values are, we don't lie, we are open and honest, even if it's painful. I tell even the leadership team, like, look, I don't care what it is, just tell me the truth. I can handle, after 17 years in the business, I promise you, I've pretty much heard everything, like 99.9%. So just tell me and I will help you fix it. Like, the worst thing you can do is lie. So go through and list about 5 to 7 values that are really important to you. Put them everywhere, on your wall, on your website, on your email signature, because what will happen is you start to attract the correct staff who align with your values and your mission. And then you also repel the staff who maybe don't want to be honest, they don't want to be hardworking or responsible or accountable. One of ours is accountability as well. And then you also attract parents and clients who have those types of values and understand your mission as well. So work on your mission, what you do and why you do it, and then come up with about 5 to 7 really important values that you and your leadership team, maybe your director and you together, work on, and just disseminate that to the staff, and then also send it out to the parents and say, this is who we want. So right away, you're creating this foundation of understanding and clarity about who you are. And so when you go to even, and this is how you reward and recognize your staff, it's not just a task list anymore. It becomes, hey, are you on mission with us? Because right now we're seeing this and it doesn't seem to align. What's going on? It opens a conversation. And if there's something where, and I know this happens a lot, and as directors and owners, we are constantly following up, but you see behaviors and things that they don't align, but you're not sure how to handle it. Well, if you've passed out those values, you can point back to that and say, hey, remember, we're a place of integrity and we tell the truth here. what's really going on. We're going to give you a chance to be honest, whatever it is, it could be anything. Or if someone's not hardworking and they just kind of want to let everyone else do their job and the team, say, hey, we're a team here. We're a team player. We want team players. And we're seeing this isn't happening. You get another chance to try, but we're going to revisit this issue. So it gives you this really great foundation to work on your business, and to just attract the right people, right? And this is a problem in our time right now, is staff retention. So you're going to attract the right ones and the good ones who will align with your mission and values. But then thirdly, the operations piece, and that's where the systems come in. Do you have a system for keeping your staff accountable? And we actually have included a system where they keep themselves accountable for things that are data points that will affect your bottom line and profitability. So, it's not just a to-do list. It's not like a task list. It's about data points. Like, are you doing, like, even with the teachers, for example, we do checking in with the energy level in the classroom. And one of the teachers was laughing. She's like, I was checking on the kids, and then I realized, oh, it's my energy level that I need to check on, and things like that are intangibles. But those are the things that make your childcare business just grow. And we've seen it over and over in our centers. So these are some of the things that, self-accountability and some of the operations, we make sure everyone is onboarded the same way as a staff, and then they exit the same way if they're leaving. Some of the other systems are your marketing plan. How do you do that? Most of us are referral based. So do you have a referral plan in place? Is it really obvious and clear, to your clients? Most clients will refer you if you're doing well with their children, of course. So, and then communication, you want to look at all your communication strategies. They say it needs to be 5 to 7 different methods. We joked about stapling a piece of paper on the child's shirt to go home. Like, they didn't see the phone call, they didn't see the text message, they didn't see the emails, and they didn't see the app message. So we're going to put it on their, their shirt. So, you have to think of a lot of ways for communication as well. So those are some of and I know that's a lot, but I'm just giving you a quick overview of this is the magic key to making your business profitable, because profits, staff retention, and happiness level in the culture of your business is what brings you more money and more referrals and keeps the staff longer, which makes the kids happier, makes the parents happier. It's a really good ecosystem.
Wow, I'm so excited to hear all of this because I want to go deeper on so much that you said because I feel that it's going to help so many people. So let me do a quick recap of so far where we're at here. So you mentioned that there are 3 main areas where you focus to actually optimize the center.
Yes.
One of them is mission. The second one is values. The third one is systems. I want to go deeper in systems now, because you said several things there that I wrote down that I want to ask you about. But I wanted to say something about the mission and the values. As often as we talk about this, as often as we hear it, here's what makes the difference with the actual mission and values being effective: the application of it, the enforcement of it. I'm sure you picked up when Cassie said that she lets her team know when something is out of alignment with the values, and if it doesn't get corrected, that team member will be invited to leave. And so these are the types of decisions that are difficult to make, but that when you do, you really, really keep the integrity of your mission and your values in your center, in your people, and the way you go about doing business. So I wanted to highlight that because I feel it's so important. And this goes for your own personal lives as well. If you have your own personal set of mission and value systems, decision making then becomes very easy, because every decision goes, okay, is it in alignment or is it not in alignment? If it's in alignment, we go for it. If it's not in alignment, maybe you don't want to go that way. So I wanted to highlight on that. Okay, so let's talk about specifically some of the systems and maybe in a little bit more detail that you have been able to implement successfully. So you mentioned the area about staff keeping themselves accountable. So how do you, or give us just an example or two of what you have done to help and enable, or rather empower your staff to keep themselves in check?
Yes, that's such a good question. I never really knew how to do this for many years, believe me. It'd be like, when you're trying to correct a staff member and it's like you're speaking past each other in like two different languages. And I'm like, why aren't you understanding me? And they're like, why aren't you hearing me? So this is part of that whole communication piece and accountability for yourself. And also, nobody wants to be babysat or micromanaged, right? I mean, the right people don't want to be micromanaged. So we give them a tool. We call it a scorecard. You could call it a KPI, which are key performance indicators. Every industry is a little different. With childcare, a lot of it is what we call the warm and fuzzies, right? It's like, are they warm and fuzzy? Do we like being around? Are they happy? Do they love kids? This is part of why we do like the energy check, energy in the room, because sometimes as teachers, you can be like all worked up and guess what? Kids are mirrors and they're just like, everybody's worked up and it's like, let's just take a breath. So what we do is we just create a really, really simple, and you can probably Google it. We have our own template for this, but go on a Google Excel or Google spreadsheets, create pick the things that tend to fall through the cracks, or first start with the things that you're constantly correcting as a director or an owner. If you see these things that are not happening, for example, right now we have the SIDS check on the baby room scorecard, because sometimes they would forget to do it, but now they do it through the app that we connect the parents with, because they do like every 10 minutes during nap time, they've got to visually check for SIDS and, breathing of the children and everything, if you aren't familiar with that. Some of those things, sometimes the form didn't get manually filled out. So we do it as a check-in every day and they can just click on it like a check mark. It's just to keep things top of mind. But they also do it in the app as well, because we use an app that's just for daycare. And it's really helpful to do that. But the idea of the scorecard are things that maybe have fallen through the cracks before. And if you're listening and you're a director, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're like, why does this keep happening? Or the parents are always complaining about the wrong cup going home, or things that need to be. And for every classroom it may be different. The teachers are allowed to kind of create their own KPIs, and it's very simple. It should be able to take 5 minutes to fill out, but it's the idea of keeping things front of mind for the staff. And it's there, they have to fill it out, and then the director looks at it every Friday afternoon at the end of the day. So they're, the end of the day they have to fill it out, but it should literally take 3 minutes every day to just check mark, check in, make sure they're doing this. And then when we go to do, semi-annual reviews with the staff, the director pulls those out. We save them in Google Drive. And it's just a quick, by month, they can check on each classroom. And it's a quick review so that we see that they're holding themselves accountable and they're responsible to fill it out every week and send it in to us. So it's just a tool. And, maybe there's another way in your center that works for you. Maybe you've got already like software in place. Use whatever you have already, but just make it simple and easy. And those are the things that, as a director, start with the things that seem to always be falling through the cracks. And what will happen is it'll bring it to their awareness, because when we know we have to check on something, our subconscious kicks in. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Suddenly you see, it's like this whole thing, like you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere, right? You're actually reprogramming the subconscious to be aware of those things. Whereas sometimes when you're distracted by the kids, you're just, kind of spinning and just getting through your day and getting through your lesson plan. And, obviously things like lesson plans turned in every week to the director on there as well. But maybe, 5 to 10 items per day, and they daily check in with this. And then by Friday it has to be completed. And that's a way to keep self-accountability. So the director isn't always like having to micromanage. And that's really important for staff morale. Nobody wants to be, babysat or feel like someone's like staring over their shoulder. And if that's someone is repeatedly having to have someone like the director stare over their shoulder, they're probably not for us, right? It's like, hey, that's not what our mission is. That's not how we operate here. We shouldn't have to babysit anyone. And the scorecard is, they're almost like doing their self-evaluation every week, right? Just a little quick. And then, and we also, on the scorecards, we put our mission and values on the side so they remember, because they'll get evaluated on that too. So that's one way for staff accountability. I mean, in addition to, we check in and everything, but it's a great way and they seem really happy doing it so far. So we're gonna, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love that you empower them to keep themselves in alignment, in check. I love the scorecard tip. I hope that if you're watching and you don't have a system like this in place, you give this a try and then let us know here at the channel how it went. And so, Cassie, now you mentioned that you have a referral system that you put in place. Do you have this for families only? Do you have it for your staff as well? Tell us a little bit about the system you have for that.
Right now, you know what? We have it for in place for our families, but now that you say like your staff as well, oh, that's a really good idea. I think it's just more important also to make sure that it's clearly communicated. So our parents know that if they refer anyone to us and they attend for a whole month and they've paid for a month, then we give them a $300 credit on their own tuition bill. So that way it kind of, and it's unlimited. You refer 10 people, you're going to get $3,000 credit. So, and they need to attend for a month. Obviously, they have to pay and attend for 1 month. That's our only requirement. But we get our whole business, we have a huge wait list. Our whole business is referral based. So we do have some marketing out, like some postcards going out, really simple local marketing, but nothing, I know a lot of people are always worried about marketing, but referrals are the best, a happy client. And if you'd let them know, hey, we have this in place. I mean, I think parents are happy to get $300 credit on their tuition bill. They're like, yay. Some of them have multiple kids. So it's like, it's a nice, discount for them. But yeah, I think if, it's one of those things where I should mention now that you say that, I'm like, oh, we should tell our staff as well, So, but we find mostly it's our parents referring other parents because they're like all in that age group. They're in the mommy groups on Facebook and, they're talking to each other at the park and that kind of thing. So yeah, just make
I
it
love
super
it.
clear.
If I had children, I would love to go to your school and get a referral for referring people to a happy place.
Yeah, you could possibly get your whole tuition free if you just keep referring.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, so let's make a little parenthesis here, by the way, everybody. Um, Cassie's center is called Foundations Prep, and it's in the New Jersey area. Is that right?
Yes, we're right outside New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, it's foundationsprepschool.com. So you can look us up and see us there.
Perfect. So see, if you're in the area, you might just get free tuition for your children if you use referrals. So that's great. Okay, so but I know that you have something that I loved when we spoke some time ago that you do with your staff in order to attract like-minded staff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do ask them for referrals. We half joke. I say it jokingly, but it's kind of for real, right? Like we always ask people, hey, do you know anybody just like you, like a clone of you who is exactly like you and they do everything like you because we love you so much. We have great staff and the ones who are committed and really align with our mission and values stay. And we really try to reward them with like positive things. And so if they're happy, they're going to refer their friends to come work for us, or people they know, maybe in their family, their neighbors. But we do joke about it. We're like, hey, is there a clone of you, like somebody just like you, who shows up on time, who loves the kids, and obviously number one is loving the kids. So they don't always have to be trained in terms of in a childcare center because sometimes we've actually had to untrain and retrain people from other centers. We do things a little bit differently. But we do joke about that. Like, can you help us find a friend? We always ask first, and we still do use like Indeed.com and some of these other places. But we get a lot of referrals, and the referrals are the ones that seem to work out the best because we're asking for like a clone. we want you. Yeah.
I love it. Like attracts like, absolutely. So let's make a little bit of a shift here to the children because ultimately we all do this to create an environment that's safe, that's enjoyable, that's happy for children to be able to learn and grow in the best absolute way possible. And so I was curious when you mentioned about the presence of emotion, the focus on emotional intelligence. How do you go about creating this? Because really, as we know and we speak about often here in the channel, the ages 0 through 5 form the adult, so you're really shaping generations, and now you've gone through thousands of children. So tell me about the kind of impact your curriculum or the way you go about taking care of them can have as they get older.
Wow. Yeah. And you're right. It's all of these structures, all of these systems, all of these, everything, it all comes down to being for the child. Like, we're child advocates. This is what we do. And, and we're on the same team as the parents. And I love that. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we say things to the children, how we as adults model our behavior. So when it comes to, emotional intelligence, a lot of times resilience in children has really decreased, especially after the pandemic. We're seeing children with low frustration tolerance and not a lot of resilience to bounce back. And a lot of that is just some of the social impact that the pandemic and isolation had. Depending on where you're listening from, New York and New Jersey were pretty heavily locked down. It was pretty extreme. And I know I went to visit my family in Michigan after the big first ebb and flow. And I was like, it didn't even seem like the pandemic happened. I was like, where am I? So, it's different in every area. So I totally understand that. But if you're around our area, you understand it was pretty strict. And I think that for us, some of the things that we really try to promote are just resiliency. And some of that is saying to the children, it's okay. Like, when some children really just are not able to handle like having a disappointment or a frustration or not being able to accomplish something the first time. And maybe that's just because of our, high level of screen time for kids. We have lower, kids seem to have shorter attention spans and just some issues with that. But a lot of what we do in terms of even teaching is saying, allowing for mistakes, and that it's not a failure, and not, some of these mindset things. It's like, hey, it's going to work out. Even us in the office, where, some of my business partner always says it's always going to work out. Now, we know this, but when you're in the midst of a little bit of a crisis, or somebody's complaining, or there's a potty training incident, whatever it could be, you feel a little overwhelmed, right? But if someone stops on the team and says, hey, it's all going to work out, we can figure this out together, with that team attitude. And I think that trickles down to the staff, and then that mindset also trickles down to the children. Now, we have a learn through play curriculum. And so obviously it's a lot of social time, it's a lot of interaction and a lot of movement around centers. And, that kind of interaction is what trains the children in their higher level emotional intelligence, trying as they age up to work things out themselves, redirecting the children back to themselves to, and I know any preschool teacher worth their weight in gold, like all of you are who are listening, understands this. But a lot of people don't understand how this emotional intelligence builds long-term resiliency and inner strength. And so part of it is us from the top down training, like, my business partner and I training the leadership team, which is the director and assistant director. And then they train the teaching team. And then the teaching team trains the aides. And then the afternoons, it all flows downward. And I think that when you create that environment of teachability, understanding, giving grace, and even forgiving yourself for mistakes, like, gosh, I've had to forgive myself so much more than the average person. I've made so many mistakes, but it's like, those are learning opportunities. And we can say to the children, hey, how can we figure this out a different way? And that's exactly what we say. And okay, you messed it up, now go fix it. And that creates this, we hope and pray, and we see it in children who've gone through the program, that they go on to have more stick-to-itiveness, more grit, more tenacity in their future endeavors. And that is just, it's a beautiful thing when you can see that, and, self-control, and also, building their resilience as well. So I hope that makes a little sense. It sounds a little esoteric. Does that make sense?
I am just so fascinated by your outlook on things, and even the words that you use, and how aware you are about how this all comes together. I mean, the fact that you are making it a point through your institution to trickle down to the children the values of personal responsibility, of unconditional love. And I say that because at the end of the day, every one of us, from children to adults, all we want is to be loved unconditionally and accepted for who we are. And the fact that you encourage kids to fail and then to figure out how to do better, and it's okay, meaning I'm not punishing you by figuring out that you need to fix it, but rather I'm encouraging you to think of another way. That is, to me, invaluable. And it's something that, because they're learning it since such a young age, they'll be programmed to do as adults. So, how do you, obviously, you teach them this in school. How do you connect that with the home life? Because children are influenced at these ages, they're influenced by two places: home and their school, daycare, wherever they go, right? So how do you create that seamless communication in between the home and school?
Yeah, and I think that's probably the linchpin of everything, right? And we find ourselves having conversations where maybe the child is getting two different messages, like, for example, something as basic as potty training. Some parents truly believe that their child will just figure it out on their own. And for us as educators, we're like, no, we need to teach the steps and the understanding and the body relaxation and all these things. So, even like potty training, we've created a whole packet for them. And we, even if they have to sign off on it, but understanding that we're using similar terminology. This is what we call this. This is what we call this process or this body part. This is how we say it. So that when they're at home and at school, they're understanding the same kind of process and messaging. That's like kind of a really, really concrete example. But, in all of our newsletters, all of our communication, we offer resources to the parents, and even if it's just a website for things to do, fun things on the weekend, like fun activities or local events that are going on that are really educational, and even then we still have disconnects sometimes. And, the parents and teachers can connect privately any time of the day through our app. The teachers give updates via the app. We give updates, in a lot of different ways. And still sometimes there's different messaging going on. So things have shifted over the years. When I started, and let me reminisce for a minute, I'm sounding a little bit older. 17 years ago, I was a lot younger. It was a very different mindset of the parents that brought their children to me. And it was more like, respect your teacher, whatever we said, the parents were like, okay, whatever Miss Cassie said, we're going to do. And it was definitely more of that mindset. And as we've shifted over the years, and it could just be a culture shift too, and I understand that, parents have adjusted to, sometimes saying, well, my 3-year-old said this, and we can say, well, this is how we handle it here. So sometimes there's a little bit more back and forth with that and trying to explain to the parents how we handle it in our environment. And so communication is like 10 times more important now, because it's not just Miss Cassie said. It's like, well, this is why we do what we do. This is why we say it this way, because 10 years down the road, when your child is 15, you have to think of it like, how do you want to be communicating with them? And that is huge, because we always say, as educators, like, how are we thinking long term with this child? We see little behaviors now, but we know what this is going to look like if it's not attended to now, like 10 years from now. And that's definitely a longer view. But just in terms of even just parental support and resourcing, we've connected with, I mentioned before, a parent coach. She's someone I met through another group I was in, and I really like her approach. She's certified, and so she actually offers our parents every year a free call. And then if they want to, go with her and hire her to be their long-term parent coach, they can. But she gives us a free call every year that they could talk through their issues and get support that way as well. So, part of that is just being that resource, and then being open to phone calls, meetings, constant communication, and explaining why we do what we do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, this is amazing. I picked up on something you said earlier. But did I hear correctly that you actually have a manual where you teach parents things like terminologies that you use in your center and different communication? You actually give them a manual for them to read and
Yeah,
see.
we call it the parent agreement, and it's a big document, and they have to sign off on all these different things. And all daycares have this, but we actually created a whole potty manual to sign off on, and even explaining, about our curriculum and things like that, just so they're aware of what we do and why we do it. And then we really go into, we just had our back to school night last week, and we went, the teachers explained even more deeply, like for that particular classroom, how they implement these things. But yes, we have them sign off on all those things. So we just try to make it super clear, and we know how busy parents are. Eventually I'd love to have some training videos. There's some things in my mind that I'm like, oh, I think I want to implement this, but we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, amazing. Maybe we'll have you back on the channel to actually give a training and share it.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I love it. So let me ask you something. You mentioned the parent coach that you offer once a year for free, obviously, and they can do more. But that to me is quite revolutionary, because I feel like you don't come with a manual. No child comes with a manual when you're a parent, right? And so parents, as it is, most of them tend to be very busy. And I know you have some Wall Street parents in your centers. That's very high stress type of work environment. And I know the children feel that. And so how many of your parents would you say percentage wise actually use this service?
I feel like we were talking about this. I feel like it's too low. Sometimes we've been referring her to specific parents if there's like an issue. But I actually just spoke to my staff last week after we spoke. I was like, Yane has this great idea. And they're like, who's Yane? I'm like, no, I'll give you the website. So I give them the YouTube. Anyway, of reframing that idea, instead of waiting for the emergency, like get on a call before it's too late, do a prevention call, like a parent prevention call. And, because I know sometimes there's a little bit of stress or maybe even feeling a little bit of shame, like, oh no, they referred me to the parent coach, I'm a bad parent. It's not like that at all. Actually, like you said, I have 4 children, and I had to relearn how to parent with all 4 of them because they were all so individual. I was like, I thought I had this figured out, and I'm an educator. So I can't imagine, someone who maybe does computer science. I don't know, like they didn't even learn some of these things. So, I think that we're working on reframing that actually in our October 1st newsletter. So thank you, Yane.
Oh, I love it. Share the newsletter when it comes out with me. I love to take a look.
I will. I'll forward it.
Oh, this is amazing. Okay. All right. Well, I'm really excited about that. And yes, just to give you a little bit of context here, when Cassie and I were talking last week, I was sharing with her a little bit of my own realizations on a trip that I was at in Costa Rica. And one of the quotes that we shared in that conversation is from Benjamin Franklin, which says, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." So, I feel like, and I'm so glad that you brought this up here, because I feel like so many of us are living with recurrent levels of stress, anxiety, worries on a day-to-day basis. And the children inherit that. They feel it. Like you said, right? For the teachers to do an energy check. Well, parents, I would suggest do an energy check as well, especially when you're at work having a really stressful day, and then all of a sudden now you're back home with your child. Well, maybe creating a ritual of shifting that energy. Okay, I'm at home now. Let me shift my energy so that I can give my best and a safe environment to the child would be advisable, right? So speaking of safety, right? At the end of the day, children want to feel safe, right? So is this something that do you have something you want to share on how you go about this, of creating this safe or safety environment for the children?
Yeah, I think, like we said, even like this shifting to this part of the conversation, it's really all about the children, right? We can talk about all these fun things, systems, ideas, but really, what are the results in the children? And I think that as we help our staff become better and more highly emotionally intelligent, and that does take some vulnerability on our part to admit when we're wrong or admit that we don't know something, that is when the children are protected by them as well. And then creating that safe environment creating the connection. They understand that when they're at home and at school, they're hearing the same messaging. That creates an emotional safety for them. And I think, years ago we used to talk about stranger danger, all this, that's physical safety, and obviously emotional after that. But physical safety, we focused on, like, look both ways before you cross the street. But what about the emotions? And I think that emotional safety is what's on the table now, especially after the pandemic. A lot of children have suffered through this isolation, and during their most important developmental years. We realized when we were looking at our daycare this fall, the roster, basically the first half of our daycare, the youngest half, before that, that was their first social exposure, was coming to daycare. And before that, it was always family and friends. But because of the pandemic issues, we are their first foray into social environment, which is really shocking. So we have to be more understanding, more, giving a little more grace to the children, teaching them more social skills and focusing on that so they can be emotionally safe to learn, the intellectual skills they need, or the data they need to learn technically to be ready for kindergarten. And I think that, looking at the past, 17 years till now, we are just in a place where, children just need so much more emotional support, and allow them to experience their emotions instead of like making them into little soldiers. And I know our parent coach, Robin, was giving a training one time, and she talked about emotions kind of being like the tunnel, and then the train is us, and we kind of have to go through that emotional tunnel to get on the other side. But a lot of times we block children. We're like, no, stop crying, stop saying that, don't be angry, don't be upset, don't, and we just make them stuff it, instead of like just allow them to go through the tunnel and experience it. And it actually has helped me as an adult. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't have time for this feeling. I'm like, wait a second, I need to love myself and allow myself to be upset right now, but then get to the other side. And that's, like we talked about, the resiliency. It's all interconnected. And, my biggest goal, our biggest goal now, and our mission is to, encourage this emotional development and then create that safe environment for them.
I love that, the emotional tunnel and going through it. First time I hear it in those words. I
Yeah.
love it. And it
Can you
sounds
tell
to
we talk
me,
to kids? Yeah. The
what
train.
is
You can tell we talk to kids, right? Like we have to do.
it? But you know what? What I love about that is that adults will get it better too. Just because you've grown up doesn't mean that you can't have fun while learning something. So I really love, I might use that. I will use that emotional tunnel. I mean, that's fantastic. I feel like we can have an entire class on just how to speak to children in a way they would understand.
Yes.
Coming
That's awesome.
soon. Cassie, this has been so good. We're getting to the end here of our interview. Please tell us, where can we find you? If anybody wants to talk to you, wants to work with you, where can they find you?
Awesome. I would love to speak with you. If you want to go to my website, I have a contact form there. So, I have my main website for the daycare. If you want to look that up, that's foundationsprepschool.com. But my personal website for coaching, consulting, doing some of these, these systems and operations support to create more profitability on the other side, it's CassieSaquing.com. So CassieSaquing.com. And you can go to the contact page there and kind of just see what I do. So I'd love to help you if you're interested.
I love it. I love it. And if you've been watching up until now and you've enjoyed this episode, then I invite you to like it, share it, and please subscribe to the channel, because this will help us grow and provide a lot more content of value like what we've shared here today with Miss Cassie. All right, Cassie, we do something here on the channel to close things up. That's called 3 in a Beat. And that is just a fun little game we play with our guests, where we ask you 3 questions and you have to answer them in either one word or one sentence at the maximum. Are you ready to play?
Yes, sure.
All right. So question number 1 is, if you could have a giant billboard with a message to inspire others, what would it say?
I would say it will all work out. It will all work out.
Ooh, I love it. Okay. Question number 2. What is something worth fighting for?
Emotional safety
I love it.
for
Okay.
ourselves.
Yep, I love it. And then last question, something like, what is the last film you watched?
Oh, Maverick. Maverick. Me and my husband, of course.
Oh, fantastic. I have to watch that one. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your wisdom and expertise. I've really, really enjoyed having you here on the channel. And I really look forward to having you back and teaching some more stuff. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate your time.